My name is Layla Woods. I'm 26, and until this year, I thought love meant answering the phone no matter what hour it rang. It started in January when Chicago winter bites like it's personal. Mom, Patricia, 52, called sobbing about a busted heater, breath fogging the receiver as if I could see it. Layla, I'm freezing. I can't think. I can't sleep. If I close my eyes, I might not wake up. I grabbed my toolkit and drove across town on streets that looked like glass. I stayed all night, then paid $800 for a professional repair because Mom said her savings were locked up in an investment she couldn't access quickly. 2 weeks later, my kid sister Ashley, 24, called at 2 o'clock a.m., crying on a highway shoulder where trucks roared like monsters. My car died. I'm scared, Layla. I can't afford the tow. I drove 40 minutes, stood in the cold while a tow truck winched her sedan and lent her my car, just for 2 weeks. No invoice ever surfaced. I didn't ask. I didn't want to be the kind of sister who asked. It never stopped. A dead refrigerator, a crashed laptop. Before a major presentation, a fall that left Mom's ankle fragile for weeks, so I became a chauffeur. A mysterious leak at Ashley's place that apparently only I could confront. Each incident came with the same urgency. Come now, bring money, stay until we feel better. My life shrank to the size of other people's alarms. The thing I had, my apartment, became their chorus. I'd bought a small 2-bedroom in Lincoln Park last year. I'm a software engineer, so I carved out a spare room for a home office, stuck a ficus in the corner like it might oxygenate my willpower, and told myself I had finally built a life with walls and a lock. You must get so lonely in this big place, Mom would sigh, looking around like an appraiser. Ashley joked, if you ever want a roommate to help with the mortgage, I'm available. The joke never landed. It never changed. By early spring, the comments sharpened. What if, Mom asked, lips pursed like she was proposing vitamins, for insurance purposes, you added me to the deed, just in case something happens to you? I told her I had life insurance and a will. She came back 2 weeks later with paperwork printed from some template site, tapping the line that said, keep the apartment in the family. Meanwhile, Ashley started forgetting things at my place. A cardigan over a chair, a toothbrush near my sink, a pair of flats placed right by my front door as if my hallway were home base. Oops, she'd chirp. I just want to feel comfortable when I visit. Packages began appearing addressed to her. I asked her to change the shipping. She smiled like I was being silly. We're family. I was not lonely, but I was alone. Daniel, my boyfriend, works long shifts at a logistics firm, and we're careful not to sponge our stress onto each other. He kept saying, I'm here. Tell me what you need. What I needed felt unreasonable, for my phone to stop ringing with emergencies that only I could fix. The breaking point came after Mom's late-night chest pains, a terror that turned out to be indigestion. I had a work conference the next day and asked Ashley to water my plants while I was gone. I made the mistake of giving her a spare key. When I came back 2 days later, the apartment had been rearranged like a realtor's fantasy. My couch was shifted. My books were stacked by color. And in my office, my small, sanctified square of focus, Ashley had installed a permanent workspace. Ring light, rolling chair, a whiteboard that said content calendar across the top. There were Tupperware containers in my fridge labeled with her name. I've been testing living here, she said, breezy like she was unveiling a surprise party, to see if we'd be compatible roommates. Return the key, I told her. My voice shook. Today. She cried on cue. Layla, you're so selfish. We took care of you your whole life, and now when we need a little help. My phone rang before the tears were dry. Mom. She didn't say hello. How could you do that to your sister? Family supports each other, especially when some of us are struggling and some of us have more than we need. It was 3 o'clock a.m. when I sat at my kitchen table, the ficus a dark silhouette against city lights. I added up the year, the heater, the tow, the laptop, the leak, the ankle. Over $15,000 gone, not counting hours bled from my job and the constant, gnawing fear that I was failing people I loved. I scrolled my bank app and watched the debits light up an unintentional pattern like airport runway lights, every crisis within a day or two of my payday. A second pattern, the escalation. First minor repairs, then medical, then infrastructure, then my home. I tried to rationalize. I tried to breathe. Mom had always been dramatic. Ashley had always been intense. But the heater repair company had never sent me a receipt with a work order number. Ashley's highway tow invoice didn't list a cross street. The laptop died the exact week she started a new streaming hobby. The leak never left a stain. Maybe I'm paranoid, I whispered to the ficus. The ficus had no opinion. The door buzzed then. Daniel, face creased with worry. I hadn't asked him to come. He pulled me into the kind of hug that steadies the floorboards. You're not paranoid, he said quietly. You're exhausted. I can't accuse my own family of lying, I said. Then don't accuse, he said. Verify. I stared at my phone. There was one person who would verify the math and not care if the answers made us both unpopular. Someone I'd been avoiding because Mom said she'd become cold, corporate, too focused on money. My older sister, Natalie. We hadn't been close since she took an overseas role 3 years ago. The story I'd accepted was that she'd chosen career over family. But another story, the one forming like condensation on a cold glass, said perhaps she'd chosen distance over damage. I typed her number. I didn't hit call. I remembered the last time we spoke, before she left for Singapore. Mom had tried to convince her to co-sign some can't-lose business loan. Natalie had laughed and then apologized for laughing. I won't sign, but I'll help you budget, she'd offered. Mom hadn't forgiven the word no. Neither had Ashley. The buzzer sounded again. Not the door this time, but my phone. Mom sending a string of messages. You owe us. We made you. If you'd just put us on the deed, none of this would be necessary. The word deed sat there, heavy as a stone in my stomach. I opened my banking app again, scrolled back month by month. Payday Friday, emergency Saturday. Payday Friday, emergency Monday. Payday Friday, emergency. Right now. I pulled up my calendar and began marking them. Red dots on the weeks my balance refilled. The screen grew measles. You see it, don't you? Daniel said softly behind me. I hit call. The line clicked and a woman's voice answered, low and surprised and a little wary. Layla, it's very early here. Natalie, I said, and the word cracked open a place in me I didn't know was bricked over. I need help. Silence, then, tell me everything. And for the first time all year, I did. The heater, the tow, the laptop, the leak, the ankle, the deed, the test run in my home office, the 15,000, the payday dots. I waited for the lecture about family and forgiveness. Instead, Natalie asked one question that changed the shape of the room. Why do you think I really left? My throat tightened. I didn't know. I'll be on a flight Tuesday, she said. Book me a hotel if you want privacy, or I can stay with you if you feel safe. We'll verify everything. We'll start with receipts. She paused. Layla, you are not crazy. After we hung up, I stared at my office door, at the whiteboard with content calendar written in block letters that weren't mine. I erased it. My hand shook, but the letters disappeared all the same. In the hallway mirror, my face looked older than 26. Still, there was something new at the edges of my eyes, something like steadiness. From the living room, my phone chimed again. A social story from a woman I didn't follow, Sabrina, a polished smile, a caption about certain daughters who forget who lifted them. I didn't know her. I only felt the chill of a message aimed like a dart. A smear pipeline? Paranoia? I couldn't tell yet. I watered the ficus. I made tea. I changed the lock cylinder on my spare key set. Then I sat at the table and drew a straight line down the center of a page. What I can prove, what I feel. By dawn, the left column had bullet points. The right column had one sentence. Love isn't a fire alarm. On Tuesday, my sister would land. Between now and then, I would not spend, I would not explain, and I would not apologize for changing my lock. I turned off my phone and slept. When I picked up Natalie from O'Hare that Tuesday, she was exactly as I remembered. Precise, calm, the kind of person whose silence makes others trip over explanations. She looked out the car window at the flat stretch of skyline and said only, "So this is where all the emergencies live." Inside my apartment, she set her bag down and studied the space. "It's nice," she said after a pause. "Smaller than I imagined, but peaceful. You've built something for yourself, Layla." Peaceful was generous. There were still faint nail holes where Ashley had hung her whiteboard. We made coffee and started reviewing everything: texts, emails, payment confirmations. Natalie opened her laptop, scrolling with surgical precision. "Let's treat this like an audit," she said. "You describe, I'll date stamp." By noon, my kitchen table was a crime scene of sticky notes: red ones for Mom, yellow for Ashley. Every single emergency had a payday within 48 hours. Natalie tapped her pen against her mug. "They're stress testing you, seeing how far guilt stretches before it snaps." Her phrasing was cold, but the truth behind it wasn't. I leaned back, exhaling. Maybe they just needed help. Maybe. "Then why lie?" she cut in softly. "The heater repair company you used? Look." She turned her screen toward me. "They have no record of service at Mom's address. And the tow truck Ashley said rescued her picked her car up at her apartment complex, not a highway shoulder." I stared at the screen until the text blurred. She sent me pictures of flashing hazard lights. "From a parking lot," Natalie said. "See that building reflection?" The bottom dropped out of my stomach. "And it's not just those two. Mom's ankle injury coincided with her spa's grand reopening. Check the social posts. She was standing in heels." Natalie's tone didn't gloat. It mourned. "They didn't need repairs or rides, Layla. They needed leverage." I sat there with my palms pressed together so hard they ached. All this just to get what? My apartment? Natalie looked up, expression unreadable. "That's how it started with me. When I bought my first condo, Mom suddenly had car trouble, rent issues, investment delays. I paid until I couldn't breathe. The moment I stopped, she said I'd abandoned her. That's when I left for Singapore." Something inside me twisted. "She said you left because you didn't care." Her smile was thin. That's the story she tells when someone stops being useful. That night, Daniel came over after his shift. Natalie greeted him politely, but watched him with that older sibling scrutiny that never fades. Once he left, she said, "He seems steady." "He is." "Then lean on him, but more importantly, lean on proof." Proof. The word sat heavy in the air. Over the next 2 days, Natalie and I built folders: scans of receipts, call logs, screenshots of messages, timestamps. She cross-referenced every emergency against Ashley's social media posts. The contradictions stacked like dominoes. Late Friday, Natalie looked up from her laptop. "You've lost over $15,000. I blinked. "That's just cash flow, not counting days off work." "Layla," she said quietly, "that's not helping family. That's financing fraud." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. "So what do I do? Sue my mother?" "No, we start smaller." She pulled up a calendar. "We confront them calmly, facts only, no emotion, no apologies." My stomach turned. "That'll go well. They'll deny, then they'll attack, then one of them will admit too much." She said it like she'd seen the movie before. On Sunday morning, I texted Mom and Ashley. "We need to talk about money and boundaries. Tuesday, 3 p.m., the cafe on Clark Street. Neutral ground." Mom replied instantly, "Finally. We've been worried sick about you." Ashley took longer. "If this is about that silly key thing, I already forgave you." Natalie smirked when I showed her the messages. Predictable. They think they still control the story. But she was already planning for phase 2, documentation. She recorded a short video summary of our findings, timestamped it, and saved backups to multiple drives. "In case they try to flip the narrative," she said. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment felt intrusive, like the walls were listening. I opened my phone and scrolled through Instagram to distract myself, only to see Sabrina, that same polished influencer who'd posted about ungrateful daughters, now sharing a vague meme: "When you bite the hand that raised you, don't be surprised when you starve." The timing was too specific. Sabrina was Daniel's ex-girlfriend. They'd dated years before me, but she still hovered on the outskirts of our social circle, posting cryptic things whenever she sensed attention nearby. I showed Daniel the post the next morning. He frowned. "That's probably not about you." "Then why does she follow my sister?" He went quiet. "Wait, what?" I turned my phone toward him. Ashley followed Sabrina, and Sabrina had commented on one of Ashley's videos 2 weeks ago. "Family always sticks together. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting what's fair." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "That's not good." Not good is an understatement. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Ashley and Sabrina connected, a potential leak, maybe even a propaganda chain. I imagine Sabrina feeding Mom and Ashley advice about reclaiming assets, entitled siblings, public sympathy. Natalie's voice echoed in my head. They think they still control the story. At noon, she came out of my office where she'd been printing documents. Tomorrow's the meeting. You ready? I don't know. Then we'll fake it. She closed her laptop, her tone suddenly gentle. Listen, Layla, they built this web for years. You're not weak for getting caught. You're strong for recognizing the pattern before it became a trap. I nodded, though my stomach churned. That night, as I packed the folder of evidence, Daniel texted me. You've got this. No more guilt trips, just truth. I typed back. Truth might destroy what's left of my family, he replied, or it might free you to build one that deserves you. The next afternoon, Natalie and I arrived early at the cafe. She chose a corner booth with clear sightlines to the door. We're not ambushing, she reminded me. We're clarifying. Mom walked in 5 minutes late, perfume first, apology nowhere. Ashley trailed behind, sunglasses indoors, tapping on her phone like she was live streaming in her head. Layla, Mom said brightly, sliding into the seat opposite me. You look pale. Have you been eating? Natalie opened her laptop. Let's begin. Mom blinked, noticing her for the first time. Oh, so the prodigal sister returns. Did you fly all this way just to scold us? Natalie didn't answer that. She clicked on a file titled patternevidence.pdf. We're here because the financial emergencies you reported to Layla don't align with the records. Ashley scoffed. Records? What are you, an auditor? Yes, Natalie said. Exactly that. The air went still. The smell of burnt espresso filled the silence. Mom, I said quietly, why did you tell me your heater broke when the company says they never came to your address? Her lips parted, just slightly. They must have lost the paperwork. And Ashley, Natalie said smoothly, that tow truck you claimed pulled you off the highway. It picked you up from your parking lot. Ashley's chin lifted. So what? You're spying on me now? I exhaled slowly. I'm just asking why you lied. Mom's tone hardened. You're blowing things out of proportion. We needed help. That's what family does. Why do you always make us beg? Because it's never help, I whispered. It's control. Ashley slammed her iced coffee down, liquid sloshing. So, what if we stretch the truth a little? You've got this huge apartment all to yourself. You can afford to help us. We're family. There it was, the admission. Natalie didn't flinch. That's called manipulation. And obtaining funds through deception? That's theft, actually. Mom's smile faltered. Oh, please, it's family planning. Family planning doesn't involve forged invoices, Natalie replied coldly. Ashley stood, face flushed. You think you're so perfect because you ran away? But you owe us, both of you. I felt something inside me, something small and shaking, finally steady. No, I said, I don't. Natalie gathered the papers calmly. Meeting's over. As we walked out into the cold afternoon, I realized my hands were trembling, but not from fear. From adrenaline, maybe even relief. Behind us, through the cafe window, Mom's face crumpled. Ashley was already on her phone, thumbs flying. The next storm, I knew, was coming fast. Natalie slipped her arm through mine as we crossed the street. Brace yourself, she said. When manipulators lose control, they create chaos. And that night, chaos knocked right on cue through my phone. Aunt Caroline, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, even Grandma, all asking one version of the same question. How could you do this to your mother? By sunrise, my phone had turned into a grenade. Dozens of notifications from numbers I barely recognized, relatives, church friends of Mom's, even her old coworker from the clinic. All versions of the same message. Family forgives, Layla. You're breaking your mother's heart. Money comes and goes, but family is forever. It was a campaign, not a conversation. Natalie called it what it was. Damage control. They're running their narrative first, she said. They want sympathy before you can tell your story. I wanted to throw my phone in the sink. It's working. Aunt Caroline says Mom's crying nonstop. Grandma left me a voicemail asking if I'm possessed. Natalie didn't look up from her laptop. Classic flying monkeys. Don't answer any of them. I almost laughed at the term. Almost. By noon, the harassment spread offline. Ashley showed up at my building's lobby, telling the doorman she'd lost her keys and needed to get in. Thankfully, I'd already warned security. When they refused, she started crying so loudly people stopped mid-step. She's my sister, she screamed. She's locking me out of my own home. The doorman called me upstairs. I came down just in time to see Ashley sitting cross-legged on the lobby floor, mascara streaking down her face. My stomach twisted, not because of pity, but recognition. She knew this performance worked on everyone else. It just didn't work on me anymore. Ashley, I said softly, leave. You're really doing this? Her voice cracked into something ugly. After everything I've done for you? Like rearranging my life or my living room? Her glare sharpened. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least it'll be my regret. When the elevator doors closed behind me, my hands shook so hard I could barely press the button. Upstairs, Natalie was waiting with tea. She'll escalate before she stops, she said calmly. And she was right. The next day, my HR manager emailed me. Your mother called our front desk 3 times this morning, claiming it's a family emergency. We've blocked her number, but please confirm everything's okay. I wanted to crawl under my desk. This is mortifying, I told Daniel over lunch. Mortifying but predictable, he said. They're desperate. It means your boundaries are working. Boundaries. The word used to sound so clinical. Now it felt like armor. That night, I sat in bed scrolling through a folder Natalie had labeled receipts. There was everything. Texts, invoices, contradictions. Evidence so clear it made me sick. Then came the final blow. A thick envelope slid under my apartment door the next morning from a law office, my name typed neatly at the top. My breath hitched as I opened it. Inside was a formal-looking letter claiming I'd made verbal promises to let Mom and Ashley live in my apartment, that they'd suffered emotional and financial damages when I breached the agreement. They demanded compensation and threatened legal action. I called Natalie immediately. She arrived within an hour, still in her blazer from a client meeting. She read the letter once, expression unreadable, then started laughing. This isn't real, she said finally. Excuse me? It's written on stolen letterhead. The formatting's wrong, and whoever drafted it forgot to remove the metadata from the template file. She flipped to the back page. See? This was written on Mom's friend Carla's laptop, the paralegal. The absurdity hit me so hard I almost laughed too. Almost. So she's forging legal threats now? Desperation phase, Natalie said simply. They tried guilt. That failed. Now it's intimidation. Daniel came over that evening and found us both surrounded by paperwork. This looks like a war room. Feels like one, I muttered. He kissed my forehead gently. Then it's time for a tactical retreat. That's when Natalie dropped her next suggestion. You need to disappear for a while, she said. Not forever, just long enough for them to lose access. I frowned. Disappearing sounds like running away. Not running. Repositioning, she corrected. As long as they can reach you, they'll keep escalating. Change your environment, change the battlefield. She explained her plan. Her firm's Denver office had an opening for a remote position in data analysis, my exact skill set. You'd work from home most days. They're flexible and pay better. I hesitated. You think leaving the city will fix this? I think distance will give you space to rebuild, she said. Mom can't weaponize proximity if she doesn't know where you are. Daniel squeezed my hand. I'll help you move if you decide. For days, I wrestled with it. Chicago was home, even if it had started to feel like a trap. But Natalie's logic was unshakable. Every boundary I tried to set was being clawed through within hours. 3 weeks later, I accepted the job. The HR rep congratulated me on my new salary, a 20% raise. I signed the lease on a modest 1-bedroom in Denver's Rhino district, small but bright, with mountain light pouring in through the windows. Before leaving, I contacted a property management company to rent out my Chicago apartment. You'll keep ownership, collect passive income, and remove yourself from the blast zone, Natalie said. She was right again. The morning of my move, Mom left one last voicemail. I can't believe you're abandoning your family, after all we've sacrificed. Ashley's sick over this. You'll regret choosing money over blood. I saved the message just in case. When Daniel helped me pack, he found the whiteboard Ashley had left behind months ago, the one with content calendar written across the top. He looked at me and smirked. Maybe you should keep it. Why? As a reminder, he said, that you're the content, not their plan. We both laughed. It felt strange but good, like sunlight through dust. 2 weeks later, I drove west with Natalie riding shotgun. Chicago vanished in the rearview mirror, replaced by open sky and silence. Somewhere in Nebraska, she turned down the radio and said quietly, I'm sorry I left you with them. You saved yourself, I said. I thought distance would stop their behavior. I didn't realize they'd just redirect it to you. She looked out at the endless highway. Mom's always believed affection is a transaction, but you believed love could fix her. That's what she took advantage of. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. When we reached Denver, Natalie helped me unpack and set up my workspace. Before leaving for the airport, she placed a small framed photo on my desk, a picture from when I was 6, her hands holding the back of my bike seat while I wobbled forward. On the bottom, she'd written in marker, "Still got you, little sis, just from a healthier distance." I cried quietly after she left. For the first time in years, my phone stayed silent all night. No emergencies, no guilt trips, just quiet. It felt unnatural at first, like waiting for a storm that never came. Then, 1 week later, Mom broke the silence. A message pinged my work phone. "Ashley's in the hospital. It's serious. You need to come home immediately." My heart plummeted. Despite everything, panic bloomed. I called the hospital she'd named, Northwestern Memorial, hands shaking. They had no record of an Ashley Woods admitted that day. When I called back from a blocked number, I heard laughter in the background before Mom answered with her practiced sob. "Layla? Is that you?" "It ends now," I said quietly. "Any further contact will be considered harassment. I will pursue legal action if needed." She tried to speak, but I hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice. For the first time in my adult life, I felt the exact weight of freedom. Terrifying, empty, and holy all at once. I closed my eyes and whispered to the quiet, "I'm not running. I'm reclaiming." Outside, the Denver night was still. Inside, I finally slept. 6 weeks later, my new life felt like someone else's dream, one that was quiet, structured, and entirely mine. Mornings began with sunlight, not phone alarms blaring urgent texts. I'd make coffee, open my laptop, and work in peace while the city stretched awake outside my window. The only sound was the steady hum of a life I finally controlled. Sometimes that silence felt too loud. I'd find myself reaching for my phone, half expecting a notification from Mom or Ashley, another fire to put out, another guilt trip to absorb. But there was nothing. Daniel called every evening. His voice had become the soft rhythm that anchored me. "How's Denver?" he'd ask. "Peaceful," I'd say, almost suspiciously so. He'd laugh. "You'll get used to it." He was right. I was learning to breathe again. Natalie checked in twice a week from Singapore, always pragmatic. "Have you changed your banking passwords?" "Yes." "Forwarded your mail to a P.O. box?" "Yes." "Documented all further contact attempts?" I smiled. Still no contact. But she was right to keep asking, because manipulation never ends quietly. By the end of the second month, I received a LinkedIn message from a stranger. "Hi, Layla. Saw your name come up in a Facebook thread. Your mom says you're estranged. I hope things work out for you." I stared at the message for a full minute before deleting it. They hadn't stopped talking about me. They'd just moved to a different stage, public sympathy. The next blow came through social media. Ashley had started posting vague videos about family betrayal and a sister who stole her home. They were full of half-truths and melodrama, the kind of content designed for pity clicks. The comments section overflowed with sympathy. "You're such a good daughter." That sister sounds heartless. And right there, among the likes and comments, was Sabrina, Daniel's ex, adding little fire emojis and captions like, "Some people only love you when you're useful." I didn't show Daniel immediately. I knew how much he hated being dragged into their orbit, but that night, over FaceTime, he noticed my silence. "Something happened," he said. "They're turning it into a show." I turned my phone to the screen and showed him Ashley's post. He exhaled slowly. "Sabrina's still inserting herself?" "Apparently, she's decided to be my sister's cheerleader now." He rubbed his temples. "Ignore them. They want you angry. That's how they keep you in their story." But it was hard not to feel the sting. These were people I'd once bought groceries for, driven across town for, sacrificed weekends for, and now they'd turned me into their villain for internet applause. I remembered what Natalie said before she left Chicago. When manipulators can't control you, they control your reputation. So I didn't respond. I didn't post a defense. I didn't even block them. I just watched the noise fade into static. 2 weeks later, Daniel visited Denver for the first time. When he stepped into my apartment, he looked around and smiled. "You finally look like you live somewhere, not hide somewhere." We spent the weekend cooking, hiking, and laughing about little things. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was living in reaction to someone else's chaos. But peace has a way of testing you. Monday morning, as I logged in for work, my phone rang from a blocked number. My gut told me not to answer, but old habits die hard. Layla? It was Mom's voice, raw and trembling. Please don't hang up. I just need a minute. I said nothing. It's Ashley, she cried. She's in the hospital. She tried to hurt herself. Please, you have to come home. My chest tightened. Even after everything, the word hospital still triggered the same reflex. Guilt, panic, responsibility. But then, instinct shifted to clarity. I opened my browser and called the hospital directly. Hi, this is Layla Woods. Could you confirm if a patient named Ashley Woods has been admitted today? After a short pause, the nurse replied, No one by that name has checked in or been admitted in the last week. I thanked her, hung up, and called Mom back, this time from Daniel's phone. She answered mid-sob. Which hospital did you say again? I asked evenly. The sob stopped. Silence. Then faint laughter in the background, and Ashley's voice saying, Is she buying it? I ended the call, blocked the number, and this time I didn't cry. Instead, I saved the call log and sent the recording to Natalie. Her response came instantly. Perfect, keep it. That's evidence of harassment and emotional manipulation. Daniel was furious when I told him. That's sick, he said. They're weaponizing sympathy. Yes, I said, and it doesn't work anymore. That night, I drafted a short email to both Mom and Ashley. Subject, cease contact. Any further attempts to contact me under false pretenses will be documented and forwarded to legal counsel. Please respect my privacy and do not reach out again. Layla. I read it twice before sending. The moment I hit send, something inside me unclenched. It wasn't anger, it was finality. After that, the silence returned. True silence. No flying monkeys, no sympathy posts, no fake emergencies. Weeks passed. My work performance soared. My manager praised my focus. Daniel started visiting more often. And when he left, he'd always whisper, You're doing great. You're free now. I was. Until one afternoon, near Thanksgiving, I received a letter, not from family, but from Grandma Eleanor. The handwriting wobbled, but familiar. Inside was a single line. Your mother told me her version. I want to hear yours. I stared at it for a long time. Grandma had always been the quiet one, the observer who saw everything and said nothing. That night I called her. She answered with a sigh of relief. Oh, thank heavens. I didn't know if you'd changed your number. I did, I said softly, but for you, I'll always pick up. We spoke for nearly an hour. I told her everything, how the emergencies had been fabricated, how Ashley tried to move in, how Mom had forged letters and faked crises. When I finished, Grandma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Your mother's always been jealous of anyone who found peace. I'm sorry it took this long for you to have yours. Tears blurred my vision. I don't hate her, I whispered. I just can't let her hurt me anymore. I know, darling, she said. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-respect. When I hung up, I felt lighter, like someone had finally witnessed the truth. Over the next few weeks, small ripples reached me through Natalie's quiet intel network. Mom had started asking distant relatives for money, claiming I'd left her destitute. Ashley had moved in with a boyfriend she once swore didn't exist. The world was carrying on without me as their scapegoat. And me? I was living, really living for the first time. I started therapy, started saving, even joined a volunteer program teaching financial literacy for young women. Turning pain into purpose became my new rule. One night, as Daniel and I watched the snow fall over Denver's quiet streets, he asked, Do you ever think about going back? I looked out the window where the city lights blurred into gold. No, I said, because I finally understand something. He turned toward me. What's that? That home isn't where you came from. It's where you stop running from yourself. He smiled. Then you're home. And for once, I didn't doubt it. 4 months later, life had a rhythm again, a quiet, deliberate one that felt earned. Every morning, I'd open the blinds and let the Denver light flood in. My small apartment was half the size of my Chicago one, but somehow it felt twice as bright. I'd sit with my coffee, look out over the skyline, and think, so this is what peace sounds like. Work was thriving. The new job gave me the freedom I'd never realized I needed. No more frantic calls in the middle of meetings. No more guilt trips between deadlines. My productivity skyrocketed, and last week my manager pulled me aside after a presentation. Layla, she said, you've been on fire lately. How would you feel about leading the Denver project full-time? I smiled. I'd feel ready, because for the first time I actually was. Natalie and I talked nearly every day now. Time zones didn't stop us. She'd call from Singapore during her lunch break, and I'd still be in pajamas. We laughed more than we used to. She'd send me photos of her desk cat, and I'd send her shots of the snowy mountains outside my window. One afternoon, she messaged, Grandma read them the riot act. Apparently, she'd shown Mom and Ashley the folder of documented evidence, the bank records, the fake lawyer letter, the call logs. Grandma had been horrified, but not surprised. She said, and I quote, Natalie told me, Patricia has always confused love with leverage. That night, I opened the old phone I kept in a drawer, my evidence phone, and reread some of the messages from those exhausting months. The guilt-laced texts, the fake emergencies, the manipulation masked as motherly concern. It was like looking at someone else's nightmare. Then I powered it off for good. Daniel visited often now. We spent weekends hiking or cooking new recipes, his laughter echoing through the apartment that once felt too quiet. One night, as we washed dishes, he said, I don't think I've ever seen you this calm. Even your voice sounds different. It's strange, I said. When you stop defending your peace, it starts defending you back. He smiled, drawing a plate. That should be on a t-shirt. A few days later, I received an email from a local nonprofit. They'd seen my posts about financial independence and invited me to host a workshop for young professionals on recognizing manipulation through money. The idea terrified me, but also thrilled me. Standing in front of that first group of attendees, I told them the truth, not the sanitized version, not the villain edit my family posted online, but the real one. How emotional guilt can disguise itself as responsibility. How helping can quietly turn into funding. How setting a boundary isn't betrayal, it's survival. Afterward, one woman stayed behind. She was maybe 20, wringing her hands. My mom does that, she said softly. Calls whenever I get paid. Says she just needs a small loan. I never thought of it as manipulation. I handed her one of the printed guides. It's not your job to be someone's safety net if they keep jumping on purpose. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That night I realized something. My pain had become my blueprint. What once broke me was now helping someone else escape the same cycle. Natalie loved that idea. That's legacy, she said during one of our calls. Not the money, the boundaries. Even Grandma sent a Christmas card that year. Inside was a simple line in shaky handwriting. I'm proud of you, my dear. You broke a pattern generations deep. The envelope also held an old photo. Me at 6, on a bike, with Natalie's hands steadying the seat behind me. On the back, in fresh ink, Natalie had written the same words she'd left on the framed copy in Denver. Still got you, little sis, just from a healthier distance. I cried, but not from sadness, from release. As the year closed, I reflected on everything I'd learned. That love isn't proven through sacrifice. That guilt is not the same as responsibility. That sometimes you have to lose what you thought was family to find what family truly is. Mom and Ashley faded into background noise. Through Natalie's quiet updates, I heard Mom had miraculously recovered from her ailments and taken a part-time job. Ashley moved in with her boyfriend, the one she swore didn't exist. And the cousin they once tried to manipulate had recognized the pattern instantly, shutting it down before it began. The web was unraveling, and I was no longer trapped inside it. One snowy morning, Daniel sent me a photo, my old Chicago apartment, now rented to a young couple who decorated it with warm lights and potted plants. Beneath it, his message read, Your place is happy again. I smiled. The rent checks from that apartment arrived each month like quiet proof that I could turn pain into stability. That home didn't have to be a battlefield. It could be an investment. Later that evening, I texted Natalie. Do you ever think we overreacted? She replied almost instantly. No, we reacted exactly enough to survive. I stared at her message for a long moment, then typed back. You were right. Leaving wasn't running. It was reclaiming. She sent one final message that night. Family isn't who demands your loyalty. It's who respects your peace. As I lay in bed, I thought about that. About the years I spent believing I owed my family endless access, endless forgiveness, endless pieces of myself, and how freeing it felt to realize that love doesn't require you to shrink. The next morning, I opened my window, letting the cold air rush in. Denver stretched wide and bright beneath me, an open horizon, full of unclaimed space. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't waiting for the next emergency call, because the only emergency left was my own well-being. And that I finally had under control.